Hello, everyone. Can you be a good writer if you don't read? Now, some of you might be surprised by my answer, but with certain caveats and qualifications, I would actually say, yes, you can. Now, let me explain. I think most writers start out with a base level of talent, something that seems to be innate or something that they are born with, so to speak. And I would like to think that when I started writing, which I hadn't really read a lot when I started writing, that I did have some writing ability, that I did have some talent even before I started reading a lot. But what reading did for me is that it refined my talent and enhanced it. And so I think that that's what reading does for writers. It refines and enhances the talent that you already have. And so reading will definitely make you a better writer. One can be a decent writer without reading, but you will definitely become a much better one if you read, because you will learn so much about writing techniques, about metaphor. You will absorb subconsciously the writing techniques of the people that you read. A lot of times, great writing will come from a mismatch of different writing styles, which when that you will pick up, which when put together will create a brand new style. And one of the I don't really consider this to be a downside of reading, but one of the things that a lot of the problems that a lot of writers can face when they do read is that they can um, they can subconsciously imitate the writers that they read. And so sometimes, I'll look at a sentence and half of it will seem like kind of like a Shakespeare, another, but the second half will seem more like Melville. And sometimes I think, okay, well, and I'm not doing this consciously, but sometimes subconsciously I will imitate other writers. And so sometimes I think, okay, well, does that mean I'm not being original since again, it's not the exact wording. And sometimes the meanings of these sentences can be very different, but the rhythm can be the same in some cases. But I'm thinking, does that mean I'm not being original? Well, no, because if you look at almost every writer, every writer who has published a book is that, or a lot of, or I mean, famous and successful writers, if you look at most of them, their writing techniques and are a mismatch of different influences, and it's a combination and a mixture of different influences. So it seems to me that as long as if you are imitating various writers and then creating something new from that, then that is actually a positive thing. That's how great art is made. Great art is made from the inspiration of other art. So, yes, reading will help your writing abilities immensely. But one can be, I would say, a decent writer without reading if they already have a base level of an innate level of talent. For example, po- uh, Roets, I mean, poet Roets, poets and writers from antiquity often didn't have a lot of opportunities to read other literature. Homer, if you believe that it was the Odyssey was written by him or came from him, I mean, there's dispute about that, but was Homer was blind and was essentially an oral poet. Many of your first poets were oral poets, and they didn't have a lot to go on other than the nature that they observed around them, and they created poetry from that. So yes, I do think that one can have an innate writing ability or poetic ability, but what reading will do is that it will enhance your ability, and in some cases will make you um, twice the writer or three times the writer that you would be than if you didn't read. Now, but I will say also that just because someone reads a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will become a great writer if they don't have any innate level of talent. So, for example, there are a lot of probably English professors or university professors are they're probably the most well-read people around. But yet, you'll often find, and yes, there are some professors who have also been successful writers and artists, but you'll often find that your most successful writers and artists didn't come from academia. And so being well read doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to have any innate talent, because reading is like having a toolbox. Is that when a writer reads, they will have more tools in their toolbox than they would have otherwise. But if someone doesn't know how to use the toolbox, then it doesn't matter how many tools they have if they don't actually know how to use them. And so there are quite a few well-read people who can't write if they don't have any innate talent to start with. Because there are some people who they're very talented at reading and analyzing things, but they're not so talented when it comes to creation. That's a different skill set. So I will say that one can be a good writer if they have a certain level of talent without reading a lot, but reading will enhance your ability as a writer, and I think it has enhanced my abilities as a writer quite a lot, to a very significant degree. So that's my thoughts on. Those are my thoughts on can you be a good writer without reading a lot.